Hello dear viewers, support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it, and also make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video. For longer than she knew, her whole existence revolved around the ship. Waking up, eating what small food they allowed her, walk around the boat, go back to sleep, then repeat. Her body ached for action, but nothing was around. She could punch or stab, especially after she found some sacks of wheat, and then stabbed needle through several of them. The captain was furious, resulting in the subsequent barring of her from swinging her sword around, or else be thrown overboard. Without her sword, she became merely bored for the remainder of the journey. Eventually, after what felt like years, the ship arrived at White Harbor before the ship even docked. She knew she was Hope. All the way in the cabin, she could smell it. Mostly because the aromas that she'd encountered recently had been sweat and seawater. The North doesn't smell like either one of those things. The North smelled like home. As fast as her feet would carry her, she bolted to the top deck. Sure enough, when she reached the bow, White Harbor lay just in front of her. Arya had little in the way of possessions, just needle, a small bag of silver, and clothes on her back. So, as soon as the ship docked, she was the first off. The feeling was indescribable. Being in the North again, so being away for so long, ever since that fateful day she left with her father and Sansa. So many years ago now, she was but a girl then. She's supposed to be woman now. Parts of her feel older now. Yet being back home makes the little want to come back out. Though she pushes that down, she's not that person anymore. She's changed. Calm and collected, she strolled through the docks. Many of the crew left with her, and she passed some masterly bannermen carrying tridents. She half expected someone to recognize her, yet walking around totally unnoticed was probably better. If she was recognized, likely the whole North would find out, which wasn't what she wanted. Yet, finally she had learned some news from the North on the boat. How recent, she didn't know. A few of the crew were from White Harbor, and she'd heard about the Boltons controlling Winterfell. But that was as of those men leaving White Harbor about a month or so. Much had changed since then. As she strutted towards town, she truly realized the great drop in temperature. Even though it wasn't full-blown winter yet, it was still quite cold. Much colder than Braavos. The rags she wore wouldn't suffice for long. Even as she walked, her teeth began to chatter. The sound of voices lead her to the plaza in the dead center of Newcastle, coming from what appeared to be a tavern. Warm yellow light peered through the closed shutters and under the wooden door. Just the sight heated her bones. But what caught her eye was what lay directly before her, a fountain. She'd seen many of these in Braavos, so they weren't foreign to her. Yet she didn't ever expect to see one in the North. Not ever. She remembered from her history lessons with Old Nan that White Harbor is the only port in the North, aside from Eastwatch. But Newcastle has many different types of people come through often, from far and different lands. It didn't seem impossible for one of those people to be able to craft a magnificent sight such as this fountain. It truly was beautiful. The pool of water surrounded a merman, holding his trident high above his head. How they managed to get water to shoot out of his mouth, she didn't know. Arya stared at it until she began to shiver, signaling it was time to get warm. Nearly running to the tavern, she approached. Once inside, a small smile came to her face. The sight of a full house, many people gathered together, merrymaking. Every table was full. But one chair remained at the bar. She took the stool there. The innkeep came up to her from behind the bar and frowned, not expecting to see a girl of her age. "What are you doing in here, little lady?" Arya cocked her head to the side and replied, "I'm not a lady." He laughed, a bright smile coming to countenance. "Sounds like something mine own daughter would say. Perhaps you two would be friends." Arya smirked. "Perhaps." Suddenly, the door to the tavern swung open, a breathless man racing in. "Easy, lad," said the innkeeper. "What's the matter?" Kingslayer, the man breathed, hacking between breaths. The Kingslayer. The entire inn fell silent, Arya as well, staring at the man. What about the Kingslayer? Dread coursed through her. Were the Lannisters actually coming north? Finally, the man caught his breath. King Stannis and Lord Jon annihilated the Kingslayer's army at the Muddy Hill. The twins are under siege, and the Lannisters have abandoned the Riverlands. It was barely a moment before the entire tavern erupted into cheers. Drunken and not-so-drunken hollers echoing loudly within the walls, mugs of ale hoisted in the air, while reactions to the Battle of Winterfell were confused and muted, no one liking when Northerners fought Northerners, the defeat of the hated Lannisters, and the soon-to-be defeat of the blood-sucking Freys, united the Northmen unlike any other. The Red Wedding is avenged. Fuck the Lannisters and their incest spawn. All hail Jon Stark, Warden of the North. That drew the most cheers, nearly every patron howling to the ceilings in their best imitation of a howl of a dire wolf. White Wolf! White Wolf! White Wolf! But for Arya, she sat at the counter, shock still, her mouth hung open. Jon, as in her brother Jon, Warden of the North. Jon Stark. So many questions ran through her head. What in seven hells had happened while she was gone? Not happy, young lass. She was brought out of her shock by the tavern owner, smiling down at her with a jolly expression. Join the celebration. Who is Jon Stark? The proprietor gave her a queer look. Hey, have you been in a cave for the last year, lass? No, bravos, Arya pouted, hoping to retain some of her childhood innocence. Please, Sarah, tell me. I thought the Boltons ruled Winterfell. He chuckled. Rose and Ramsay Bolton are dead, lass. Stannis Baratheon and Jon Snow came down from Castle Black with knights and wildings and retook Winterfell. Stannis even legitimized him, and he's down in the Riverlands avenging the North. A fat hand smacked the table. Eddard Stark's daughter and son now rule Winterfell in the lad's absence. And it's about time, too. Nothing's right in the world lest a Stark sits in that castle, if I do say so, meself. Arya's breath hitched, her entire body a tempest of emotions. Shock, confusion, anger, relief, joy, excitement. Just a few minutes ago, her plan had been to gather some supplies, travel to Winterfell and kill Roose Bolton and his son. Now she didn't know what to do. She could go home, Winterfell. She'd just learned that Sansa must be there, and one of her other brothers, that could either be Bran or Rickon. But Jon's not there. Jon is at the Twins. She very much wanted to see her favorite brother again. So the Twins it is. Maybe she start crossing off a few names while she's there. Come out, Lord Frey. Splayed out on several Bolton crosses, the captured scouts of House Frey were pissing themselves as Smallja number taunted the men defending the western keep of the Twins. Walder Frey was likely on the eastern side, but the Lord of Lasthearth wasn't keen on taking the skiff to the other side where the Manderleys and Mallisters completed the siege. We'll give you an honorable death. Head from body. Better than my father got from you. Yak, wrinkled old cunt. I don't think the southern fucker is getting the message, Southerner, Tormund growled, punching the side of one of the prisoners. Letting his cry of pain be heard from the gatehouse. They were a bit away, out of crossbow range. Small John glared. I ain't no southerner, wilding, he mumbled.
You're south of Dogger Wall.
So a southern kneeler. The two of them despised each other, but there was an odd respect. Both blunt and tough, fierce as foes, but even fiercer as allies. Hear that, southern kneeling fuck, Tormund yelled at the gatehouse. Y'all want a good death, surrender, now, otherwise we give ya to the Thens. The free folk leader motioned for someone. A hulking then warrior, face pockmarked with decorative mutilations, strode forth, face contorted in a malevolent grin. Looking over each of the tied-up men. He licked his lips, voice bellowing for the benefit of the watching Freys. These lads are good eatin'. One of the prisoners fainted while the rest developed a growing stain in their trousers, most yellow liquid, but for one it was the other form of human waste. This is disturbing, even for me, Sma John whispered to Tormund. We're delving into shit even the Boltons wouldn't touch. Don't tell me I fucking hate Thens, Tormund hissed back. But hey, this shit works. If I'm terrified, a bunch of pussy southerners are shitting their pants up there. The Thin was clearly having fun. Hear that, you fucking cunts. Which one of these men should I eat first? Only about 2 seconds later, an arrow slammed into the Thin's chest, sending him sprawling back. Fuck you. Cannibal wilding motherfucker, came the cry from atop the Frey battlements. Before the archers could return fire, the Thin leapt up. Arrow, not having hit anything vital, he snapped off the shaft, rage in his eyes. So that's how ya want to play, huh? Grabbing his axe, he let it swing. One of the prisoners started screaming his lungs out. Leg cleaved clean off. blood gushing from the wound onto the muddy ground below. None of the northerners, rivermen, engineers, or free folk batted an eye. The man was caught raping a local small folk woman and sentenced to death by Lord Stark. Turns out, the Warden of the North had more on his mind than executing a lowly free prisoner. So Tormund and Smaljin brought him here for their own purposes. Dead is fucking dead. The rest of the sons cheered as the warrior lifted the leg, drinking some of the pouring blood. We eat good tonight, boys. More cheers. They aren't gonna surrender, Smaljin shrugged. Well, at least they're pissing themselves. Listening to another of the catapults lob the severed heads of executed prisoners into the walls of the twins, Jon let out a sigh. Such tactics disgusted him as his father's son, but Stannis had given him both the authority and an order to take the twins by any means necessary. 7 hells, Devon, he muttered, stalking into his tent with Davos' son following. I know, my lord. Sieges, they take a lot out of a man. He had been inside Storm's End, helping his father run weapons and food during Robert's rebellion. It was not pretty. 2 months, Devon. 2 bloody months. Jon tossed another log on the fire, hoping it would ease away the bitter cold. At least the rains have passed. Those had nearly killed off hundreds from dysentery and fever had they continued. I know Stannis reclaimed Riverrun and the Lannisters are weak from our victory at Muddy Hill, but the longer Walder Frey holds out, the worse our position. They had tried everything. Braves, bombardment, intimidation, hells. A group of miners from the Stormlands had tried to tunnel under the walls of the twins. Nothing worked. Jon didn't wish for a full frontal assault and the bodies of his men it would require. But it was either that or wait another 2 months or longer for the Freys to starve. That old fucker Walder is laughing at us right now. He slammed his fist on the table, frustrated. Suddenly, a page boy peeked inside the tent. Mean lord, a raven from Winterfell. They say it's your sister's seal. A raven from Sansa? Jon frowned, taking the scroll from the lad. Yes, Lord Stark, the boy nodded before turning to leave. Jon brushed his thumb of the sigil of his house before tearing it open to read the words. He recognized Sansa's intricate handwriting immediately, yet the cursive appeared hastily composed. The parchment seemingly ruffled, appearing as if the letter had come together rather rapidly. Once Jon's eyes scanned over it, he knew why. His face contorted in surprise as he read. After he'd finished with it, he tossed it onto the table. Daven came over. What's it say? Jon didn't look at his squire. He only uttered, "Get me, Howland," Tormund, and Small Jon. After Daven didn't move right away, Jon finally turned to him with a scowl on his face. Now, the young squire squeaked and bolted out of the tent. Having the men that were requested brought to him, the Lord of Winterfell held up the scroll, then passed to Howland to read. They gathered around the table in his tent, a hand-drawn map of the twins on it. My sister Sansa sent me a raven, Jon explained. Littlefinger wants to negotiate. I see, Howland replied, seeing the words for himself. What the fuck does that mean for us? Smaw Jon snorted. Who cares about that cunt? He controls the Vale, Jon huffed. We need his support. Sansa has spent ample time with him. She will be essential in acquiring his men. Why? Tormund asked. Jon's fist clenched. He's in love with her. Ah. Howland nodded, all the pieces coming together in his head, ideas forming. The letter also says that Littlefinger would be more, he frowned, the word leaving him. Therefore his eyes snapped back to the Raven scroll. Open-minded, if we already had the twins. Correct, Jon sighed, crossing his arms. Which means we can no longer wait water out. We need to take it. How in fuck's name are supposed to do that? Small Jon exhaled, then pointed his finger in the direction of the castle. There are only 2 ways in, both gates, and both are barred. If we try ladders or a battering ram, they'll pour oil or shoot arrows. We'll lose thousands. What if we hit them from both sides? Tormund proposed, laying his hands on the table, then pointing to each side of the castle. Could they hold both sides at the same time? I don't know, Jon pursued his lips. The main force is on this side. The men I sent across the river were only a few hundred, just to keep them from leaving or getting supplies. He shrugged. Even if we sent more men, it's easier to defend than attack. He doesn't need many to properly man the defenses. If we are close to taking the castle, that fuck will probably demolish the bridge. Then we'll have lost all those men for fucking nothing. Suddenly, Howland snapped his fingers as if he remembered something he'd been trying to recall for hours. He smirked. I've got it. Care to share it with us? Jon raised his eyebrows. I've got a plan. Howland said. Then he looked to the map. What if we can find a way in near the western side, get infiltrators inside the castle while the rest of the army launches an attack? The men sneaking in can cause some chaos inside, perhaps find Walder himself. Jon went silent, stroking his lengthening beard, thinking on the Cranigan's words. That's certainly an idea. What about the rest of us outside? We'll be slaughtered, Smajian scoffed, somewhat angrily. All that has to be done is something that looks like an attack. We already have siege towers prepared. Some men will be lost for sure. Howland replied solemnly. But that will happen regardless. This way may be quicker than a full-on assault, though. If you can get in, Tormund grumbled, and that's a big if. We don't even know if there is a third way in. Every castle has hidden entrances. For a castle on the riverbank, they'll need some door for the servants to get water from the river. Jon said, widening his eyes, Allow me to send some of my men into the water. Maybe they can find a way in for us. Howland said, turning to Jon. They'll go at night, as to not be seen. Yes, send them immediately. This could work. At once, Lord Stark, Howland nodded, then left, leaving Jon with Small Jon and Tormund. I'll admit, Stark, I was hesitant to follow you, but I was foolish. Small Jon uttered, coming over to clasp his liege lord on the back. I'm with you. Smirking, Jon replied, Appreciate the support. You'll have it, Small Jon chuckled. A few moments later, he was halfway out of the tent. He turned back to say, Hopefully soon the Freys will know they had much to fear. I got a feeling you'll be remembered for this. The Wrath of the North. With that, he was gone. Tormund huffed. I best find a barrel of ale to empty. Must you always get drunk before a battle? Jon scoffed, shaking his head. You know I do, Tormund laughed, then strolled out. With a sigh, Jon rested again the table, eyes scanning over the map. Attempts were made to think it all through. Overthinking led to doubt, unfortunately. His first real campaign without Stannis didn't come without the never-ending doubt in himself, though. Somehow a part of him said not to worry. He tried to listen. Where's the damn meal? Coughing, the old man smacked his palm on the table. My stomach's fucking growling here. The soldiers and small folk inhabiting the Twins might be on starvation rations 2 months into the siege, but he always had 3 square meals a day. He didn't eat much anyway, so it balanced out. I'll be damned if I end up one of those fat fucks. Racing over to the table, slender to the borderline of scrawny underneath her ratty burlap dress, the servant girl carried a meat pie in both hands. Here you are, me lord. Steam rose from the crust. Deliciously hot. The kitchen staff had the same rations as the soldiers if they continued to please him. Spearing his spoon into the gooey insides of his meat pie, Walder Frey ignored the aching creak in his bones, savoring the taste, chewing softly, easy on his ancient teeth. What kind of meat is this? He smacked his lips together. Rather dry, tastes like cat. The servant girl bowed her head. We're running out of live animals, me lord. Either this or salted meat. Walder laughed, laughs suddenly turning into hacks. Fucking hells. Damn cough. He looked at the girl. Good job. I'd rather have cat than that damn salted leather. A wry grin crossed his face, hand cupping the girl's backside. Perhaps I'll have a reward for you, later. I look forward to it, my lord. Curtsying, she ducked out of the hall. Taking another bite, Walder looked out over the great hall of the Twins, the site of his greatest triumph, one that made him Lord Paramount of the Riverlands and brought Edmure Tully into his dungeons, now close to crumbling, besieged on all sides by Stannis. No, not Stannis, but the Stark bastard. Ironic. Robb Stark must be laughing at me from wherever the fuck he is now. Well, if Jon fucking Snow wants me, Walder Frey snarled, he can very well come and get me. Looking like a normal array of stones, suddenly it budged, pushing open from the inside, hinges groaning as 3 Frey bannermen peeked their heads out. Not even a lantern granting them a reprieve from the darkness of the misty night. Quick, the senior-most soldier told the other 2. Get to the traps and snares. Lord Walder will reward us if they nabbed some fresh meat. Salivating at the thought of a freshly roasted rabbit or fox, something like a boar being reserved for the Lord himself. They darted towards the shore. Animals coming to drink would be trapped, a technique that worked many times before. Each suppressed, gleeful cheers at the fat rabbits, ensnared by the river. Desperate to eat well, they didn't notice the 2 figures creeping behind them from the mist. One was about to bring his knife down on the rabbit when a rough hand covered his mouth, knife slitting his throat. Warm blood splattered on the other. "Watch it," he hissed, turning to further scold when he saw the corpse. A mouth opened, but only let out a bloody gurgle as Tormund drove a knife through his back. Motioning to Jon, the two grabbed the bodies, dragging them back to the castle's walls. Daring not cast a lantern out into the fog, the commander peered out. "Dax, Brian," he hissed. "Where the fuck are ya?" Not getting any answer, pissed and trembling, he just stepped out to get a better look when a dagger stabbed into his eye. The Frey bannerman gasped, twitching in shock for a moment, before slumping bonelessly to the ground. Howland withdrawing the dagger and sheathing it, he tapped a stone wall and motioned forward. Hidden exit, a young maiden ripe for the taking. The infiltration team raced from their hiding position below the Great Bridge. 5 of Howland's best fighters and 2 free folk scouts, boats abandoned. Success or failure not needing them again. "Thank gods for the fog," muttered Jon, hand on the hilt of his sword. "Why do we need to drag these fucking bodies?" muttered Tormund. "'Cause if the fog lifts," Howland whispered, "we don't want the damn sentries spotting them." Tormund said nothing, only glowering as each man ducked single file into the entrance, door shutting behind them. A small alcove fit all of them, leading to 2 sets of stairs. "All right," Jon stated. "Lord Reed and I will take half of us towards Walder's personal chambers. Tormund will go for the main barracks with the surprise." Howland had insisted they bring something special cooked up in Greywater Watch. He was tight-lipped about it, grinning as the large chest filled with the stuff was lugged by 2 of his men. "Once the signal is given at the barracks, the men outside will begin the attack. After kill every Free you can find till we reach the Great Hall." He glared at each man. "And no raping or killing women and children. Taking the fun out of it, me lord." A wildling smirked, loving the rise he got out of the Honorable Lord Crow. Jon was not amused, but brushed it off. "Ready?" "I was fucking ready when we marched from Winterfell," Tormund breathed. "Let's kill some kneelers." The pack of them climbed the steps as quickly and as quietly as they could. The pathway only lit by flickering torches, a few of them carried. Jon led the way. Everyone in tow, they turned a corner and ascended another set of steps. In a matter of seconds, Jon ascertained these led inside the courtyard. From the abundant light peering down the staircase, and the voices of Frey bannermen carried down to them. At the sight, Jon stopped, holding his hand up to stop the party behind him. The sound of footsteps had them backing up into the darkness. Howland even snuffed a torch in his hand. The others did the same. Moments later, a Frey blocked the light, standing at the top of the stairway. He held a flame himself, illuminating his confused expression. "Hey," he called out, down toward them. In the darkness, Jon's hand immediately snapped to the handle of his blade. "What's taking you cunts so long? The cooks need something to work with, other than the fucking cats and dogs." When he heard no response other than silence, he descended the steps. "I'm gonna give you fucks a good kicking." The poor man only made it down 4 steps before a knife hit him in the neck. As to not make too much commotion, a Cranogman caught the Frey before he could fall. After leaving the Frey on the stairs, everyone climbed all the way up. Thankfully, being as though it was the dead of night, there wasn't much going on in Wayguards, aside from the handful manning the walls across the way. The stables sat straight across from them, and a nearby door presumably lead inside the keep. Jon turned around to regard the men. "Tormund, head for the stables over there. That should be a good spot for the fire. Once it's lit, try to get the gates open. Lord Reed and I are going for Walder." Tormund nodded, motioning to the wildlings behind him and the Cranagan with the explosive. They headed towards the stable as Jon and Howland went for the keep. At the stables, Tormund and his squad approached, nestled around their meager fires and chewing on starvation rations. The Frey soldiers that were awake, most huddled under threadbare blankets trying to catch whatever sleep they could, didn't notice as Tormund wedged himself through several supply crates. "Bring it," he hissed. For once grateful he had small, rat-like Cranagan with him and not bruising free folk like himself. They made for perfect infiltrators, dashing through the dark doorway and sheathed in the shadows of the crates. "Here we go." One of the Crandabin took out 2 flints from his pockets, readying them by a wick sticking out of the crate. "This is for the Red Wedding, motherfuckers." It took 2 scrapes before the wick ignited. Time to go. Each man booked it, ignoring the half-hearted shouts of the Frey soldiers as they ran with utmost speed. The servant girl was just finishing polishing off the last breastplate in the armory when the entire keep shook around her. Helmets and blades falling to the floor around her as she nearly lost her balance. "What the fuck?" A screaming maid dashed past, wails echoing through the rafters. Behind was a page boy. The castle is under attack. Run! Wildlings shall eat our skin. Out of my way, cunts! The servant girl hid her surprise when in rushed Lothar Frey, or Lame Lothar as he was known. He was a dullard, but with a savage streak, said to have personally murdered Talisa Stark and her baby. The girl hated him more than anyone but Cersei. Grab what you need and get to the fucking gates. Trailing him were his personal guardsmen, 2 younger brothers and 3 trusted bannermen. They ransacked the rows of swords and mailware. I'm gonna kill some more fucking Starks this night. A younger Frey twirled a bastard sword. Caked in grime, House Frey wasn't famous for cleanliness, and the girl doubted that it had been cleaned since the Red Wedding. I'm gonna bag me Jon fucking Snow. Her eyes widened despite herself. Jon is here? Fuck you, Jon Snow is mine. Lane Lothar hissed, clipping a blade to his belt. Roose Bolton got the young wolf, but I got his stepmother, good sister, and nephew. I deserve a full-born Stark man. For the first time, he noticed the girl. What the fuck you're doing here? She forced herself to look scared. Just cleanin' me lord. The girl shifted her feet, inconspicuously nudging the hidden blade in her dress sleeve, keeping her periphery on Lothar's leering, hungry face, like father, like son. Ever Lothar, yak and fuck what y'all want after Snow is dead. Fine, he snarled. Give me a helmet, cunt. I'll give you what you deserve, me lord. She replied sweetly, grabbing the helmet she had just been cleaning. Suddenly the helmet swung through the air, crashing against Lothar's temple and sending him toppling, head smacking on the edge of the ledges. The girl was on him in a flash, stiletto clutched in her hand. A piercing scream warbled from her throat as she stabbed repeatedly through Lothar's neck, the Frey's eyes wide with shock and pain, blood spurting everywhere, drenching her face and dress. But she cared not, shifting her thrust to his eyes and face, until all above the neck was a bloody mess. A sharp kick sent her flying off him, hitting the wall with a thud and cough. Scrambling to her feet, the girl saw the attacking bannerman just in time. She sidestepped his wild slash, a quick jab of her arm puncturing a gap in the chainmail right under the armpit. The man gasped, falling to the ground, bleeding out. Hooking a helmet with her foot, she sent it into one of Lothar's brothers, smacking him in the chest and sending him sprawling. But she didn't notice Lothar's brother, Waldron. Sneaking quietly around, the girl was met with her mistake in the form of a thrusting dagger. She tried to sidestep it, and it missed her head. A cry of pain left her mouth as she fell. Dagger stuck in her shoulder. Waldron and the other men looked at her with rage, swords at the ready. I ain't gonna kill you, not at first. Let's see if her arse feels as good as it looks. The girl's eyes widened from fear as Waldron began untying his trousers. A gurgling blood trickled from Waldron Frey's mouth, dripping from the sword ran right through it. Jerking back, he collapsed bonelessly, blade catching the others off guard as another's torso was slashed across. Intestines spilling upon the floor, black-clad fighter swinging to punch a bannerman in the nose, yanking the dagger from her shoulder, grunting in pain. The girl leapt on the Frey she had sent to the floor, running the long knife through his ribs, feeling the blood spurt as his heart impaled itself on the tip. His eyes widened with understanding, breathing his last gasp of air. Letting go, standing, the girl grabbed a rag, pushing it into the wound to staunch the bleeding. It hurt like a bitch, but would do for now. Are you all right, lass? Her breath hitched at the familiar voice, a voice from a time long past. Turning, she came face to face with Jon Snow. Jon Stark, rather. His curls were matted with blood, not his own, but his face was kind. Jon watched with a puzzled expression as the mousy servant girl reached behind her head, hand yanking off her face. It completely floored him, only to yank back in utter shock. Even if he had been nearing Master Aemon's age, he would have never forgotten that face. Not ever. Eh, yay? A joyous smile spread on Arya Stark's face, the girl leaping into her older brother's arms, feeling them wrapped tightly around her, a slight sob leaving Jon. She was in tears, too, burying her face in his leather course. They broke apart moments later, almost in wonder. How? Long story, she shrugged. Calmly, Arya reached for a dark corner and removed a small sword. Curious, suddenly Jon laughed. You kept it all this time? Aruzier twirled needle with a grin. Still have plenty to stick with the pointy end. The pain in her shoulder was gone for now, determination igniting her eyes. Howland ducked his head in. My lord, the army's broken through. We're heading for the Great Hall. Bastards in there. Twin scowls met each other. Let's go. Arya hissed darkly. For Rob? For Rob. Groaning, 4 bannermen lifted the stained wooden table. Hurry, you fucks. Black Walder Rivers snarled, short sword waving in the air as he urged his father's bannermen. Get it up against the door, now. Downing the cup of wine in his hand, Walder Frey pinched the bridge of his nose. Fucking hells. Over a dozen of his best men were clustered in the Great Hall, but such was the last vestige of his control. Once he controlled the entire Riverlands, and now the entire Northern Army was flooding the castle, defenses evaporating as fires spread, and giants bashed through the gates under a hail of arrows. Crash! Crash! A rhythmic pounding, slamming against the doors, demanding entrance, bannermen flooding to brace them, deny the newcomers entrance. Hold firm! We die if you don't. Was it just a few years before that it was the Northerners that were trying to break out rather than in? Just yesterday that he had Robb Stark in tears holding the dead corpse of the foreign whore he had married. So close, so fucking close. With a resounding crack, the door was ripped out of its hinges. Leather and mail-armored Northmen streaming in, snarling and engaging the Freys with vengeful bloodlust, turning the Great Hall into a familiar bloodbath, only this one not one-sided. Crimson coated the floor, splattering from swinging swords and crashing maces. Slowly, the Frey men winnowing as more Northmen charged in. There, the unmistakable Stark features of the bastard, leaping through the hole in the door with sword swinging, followed by the short form of a girl, equally ferocious. Eyes ablaze, Jon batted away a strike from a ruddy-faced Frey. Arya, darting under his arm, howling fury as she ran the man through with needle. Kicking the boneless corpse to the ground, Jon screamed himself as he charged, finding the bastard Walder Rivers, burying Longclaw into his stomach, meeting the gaping look of shock with one of hardened rage. As soon as it began, it was over. Only the Lord of the Twins himself left alive of his men in the Western Keep. Ripping his sword from Black Walder's gut, Jon rose. The warm crimson from the last Freight's body sprayed over his face. He locked eyes with his target. Walder froze from behind his long table. 2 of Jon's bannermen trapped him from either side. Smirking, Jon rested on Longclaw, saying, Lord Walder Frey, it's good to see you. Walder scowled as the 2 bannermen came closer. Who do you think you are, bastard? Then he lifted his bony finger up. Your foolish brother died just over there. Even years later, you can still see the blood stain. If you're not careful, you'll end up the same. Axlia came from behind Jon, clutching her still bleeding shoulder. Say anything else about our brother and I'll slit your throat. Before she could continue to berate the old man, the sound of Jon's footsteps silenced everyone. His expression darkened, eyes ravenous. He dragged his blade against the stone floor before lifting it high above his head. Walder's eyes widened and he backed up, though one of the bannermen stopped him from retreating. Instead of hurling the sword at the Frey, Jon brought it down on the table, harshly slashing it in 2, the Valyrian steel making short work of it. Tiny pieces of oak went flying. Once that was out of his way, Jon stepped up to Walder's level. Eye to eye, Jon's gloved hand tightened around the handle of Longclaw. As he began to speak, his jaw clenched, his words heavy with malice, though even in tone. I've come a very long way for you, Walder. The man who murdered my brother, his wife, and the innocent child in her belly. The second, I heard. The news I wanted to come for you. But then I was just a lowly member of the Night's Watch. I had no army and no means to acquire one. Well, I didn't have to wait too long. Here I am, a new name with an army and a king at my back. He used his free hand to grab Walder by the collar to pull him close. I expected more out of you, killing Rose Bolton. At least he was someone. What do I find here? A sick old man with a bad attitude. But none of that matters now. Soon you'll be nothing. Your castle will be reduced to rubble. Your family name will disappear. Your whole house will be gone. I'll make sure of it. All the living male survivors will be sent to the wall. I'll send the women away somewhere else, unable to carry the name any further. This place will be given to someone loyal to me. No Frey will ever hold a claim of it, of anything. You hear me, Walder? The cranky old man gritted his teeth. None of that will bring your fool king brother back. Jon growled, blood boiling. Every breath you draw insults me. Behind him, Arya approached, her own eyes boring holes in Walder. She said, in a low voice, "Cut him down, Jon. Kill him." Having been watching the whole time, Howland stepped up. The scene itself had surprised him. He hadn't yet seen this side of Jon. This level of anger, he'd sparsely seen it his whole life, especially not out of a person with Stark blood running through their veins. Slowly, he moved up. "Jon, what are you doing? You don't have to do this. This isn't you." Ruzier turned to him, but Jon kept his eyes on Walder. Neither of them responded. Why strike him down in anger? Make an example of him instead, Howland proposed. "I am making an example of him," Jon replied darkly. "Everyone will see what happens when you fuck with my house." "The North remembers," Arya said, looking back to Walder. "We never forget," Jon nodded. Walder chuckled dryly, coughing a bit. "When we devised a plan to kill your brother, I said we should kill that whore who carried his child first." He wheezed out a laugh, proud of himself. "Make Robb Stark watch, helpless. I wanted to make sure that there was nothing left of the young wolf upon this earth. Succeeded too." Jon's eyes widened, shifting his hand to the neck, tightening his grip, so much so that Walder dropped to his knees for a few moments. Though Jon brought him back up, choking him. He pulled Walder close and said, "I, Jon Stark, sentence you, Walder Frey, to die." Typically, he'd allow the person some last words, but Walder didn't deserve that. "For Robb," Jon whispered. In a flash, he pushed Longclaw through Walder's stomach. Then he tore the blade out, flinging blood around, further covering himself. The Frey gurgled, holding his wound. Though the Stark wasn't done, he slashed downward, slicing through, severing the collarbone from the neck, then out and back again, digging deeper into Walder's chest. Before the dying Frey could fall, Jon twirled his blade, only to bring it back across, this time going for the head. Walder's skull lifted from his form in a spin, spurting crimson, the head landing with a dull thud against the ground. Breathing heavily, Jon watched the haggard body fall utterly lifeless, all hacked up, headless. So much blood on the stone, it pooled under his feet. Any steps only became splashes. He kept his eyes on Walder Frey for a few more moments, before turning to leave. Forever known as the Wrath of the North, smoke wreathed King's Landing, wafting from the smoldering pile of ruins where the Sept of Baelor had once been, even weeks after the explosion of wildfire that immolated it and the entirety of the people within, including the High Sparrow, the Faith Militant, Queen Marguerite, Kevin Lannister, and all of House Tyrell. Frankly, Yaemid had seen worse destruction in his life, but not worse than what it represented. Door shutting behind him by the great, towering form of what used to be Gregor Clegane. He felt his entire body trembling, staring at the form of his sister clad in a dress of all black and sipping wine quietly, crown on her head. "Please, tell me this wasn't your doing, that it was Qyburn or Littlefinger, or some insane contingency by those fanatics gone wrong." Jaime didn't recognize this Cersei, the woman he loved, replaced with someone hard. Turning, Cersei only wore a sublime smirk. "Oh, my dear brother, we don't lie to each other." She stepped close to him, hands wrapping around his waist, letting her face bury itself in the crook of his neck. Yaemid didn't stop her. "Our enemies in this wretched city are no more. We have won." "And Tommen?" Jaime croaked, trying to hide the things she was doing to him. Cersei sighed, a flicker of pain crossing her face before she smothered it. "He was always too weak, too easily manipulated to see what had to be done for our family." He gaped at her. "Tommen was our son, and now you speak of him as but an object. Don't you dare suggest I didn't love our children," Cersei hissed. "Their fate was predetermined long before I even married Robert." She closed her eyes and leaned against his chest. "The past is the past, and we must prepare for the future. And the thousands that died in the Sept of Baelor, do you plan to sweep them under a rug? You do remember what you said, sweet brother. Fuck everyone that isn't us." Jaime opened his mouth to speak, but stopped short. He had said that, "We hold the capital, that is the most important part. Even with your defeat in the Riverlands. Father should have wiped out Stannis immediately after Blackwater. He had the Red Wine fleet and could have hit Dragonstone. We're paying for his focus on the North and the Riverlands. Both hate us even more now and are led by someone strong." Cersei snorted. Stannis was wounded in the far north, doing God's knows what. He's a walking joke with a mishmash of different factions backing him. Yaemon shook his head. Not Stannis, the son of Ned Stark, his bastard. I know he is a bastard, but I haven't seen anything like it. He fights like a crazed wolf, like a winter's gale. The men already call him Wrath of the North, for how he defeated each of his family's enemies in quick succession. The Boltons, us, and now Walder Frey. He grabbed a glass of wine, draining it. Even if we kill Stannis, they'll rally behind the bastard Jon Snow, probably be more unified than ever as a result. A merry laugh left Cersei's lips, the queen looking giddy. My dear Yaemon, you are forgetting our secret weapon. She delighted in his confusion. Corridor's little birds tell us that Daenerys Targaryen is planning to sail from Slaver's Bay to take her throne back. She's been said to do that for years. I don't see how. Raising her palm, Cersei cut him off. Her 3 dragons are grown and ready to fight. They burned an entire fighting pit of her enemies. I have no doubt that she will come with all due haste to take the Iron Throne for herself. Imagining the Targaryen madness equipped with dragons all over again filled Jaime with dread. If that's true, then why are you celebrating it? Because Yaemon, the dragon whore, is weak as well, freeing the slaves of Meereen rather than sailing here with her unsullied. She spat in disrespect. She'll avoid this city in order to spare the rabble outside, bringing her in conflict with Stannis. Clapping her hands, she looked out over the city, basking in her new domain like a lioness over the grasslands. Whichever survives the onslaught shall be weak. Easy pickings for us and our forces nestled behind the walls of this city. The stag, the wolf, and the dragon will fall, and the pride of lions will rule. Staring at his sister, the woman he loved, Yaemon hoped her strategy would come together, for he remembered another king from his past fond of such great bombosity. The same ruthless zeal set in his gaze. Having known his sister was tended to many hours ago, Jan let himself in to her makeshift room. Thankfully, she wasn't in a state of undress, though he half expected her to be startled at his sudden presence. It was him who was surprised when she had no reaction at all. Arya sat at a table by a roaring fireplace. Her eyes settled on him, with raised eyebrows. Had you intended on knocking? I decided against it, Jon replied, entering fully into her space. She motioned to a chair across from her. Have a seat. Aye, Jon huffed, plopping down in the wooden chair. I'd like to sit down. I bet you do need a rest, Arya said, with a half-smile. Her brother nodded with a heavy exhale. Aye, I wish I could rest. You having been sleeping? Not much. Me neither, Arya shrugged. I suppose we're alike in that way, Jon smirked, looking his sister over. Probably not the only way. I've missed you, Jon. Jon smiled. You too. Arya winced then, rolling her shoulder around. Hurts. How are you holding up? Some old woman stitched me up this morning, then I've been sitting here ever since, Arya explained. The old bag told me I shouldn't be sparring or anything for a while unless I want to reopen the wound. I know that angers you, but it's for the best, Jon told her. Before she could retort, he kept speaking. Speaking of what's best, I think it's best if you return home. Frowning, Arya sat forward abruptly. What? It's not safe for you with me. I can take care of myself, Arya scowled. Can you, Jon said, pointing at her shoulder. I'm not a little girl anymore, she retorted, glaring at him. No, but you are my little sister, and you will do as I say, Jon told her with an air of finality. Slowly, Arya raised her chin. Since you're this big lord now, you think you can tell me what to do? That's not what this is about. This is about your safety, Jon explained, gesturing at her. I can't allow you to be harmed. I'll never forgive myself. Arya seemed to calm down, expression softening at her brother's affection. But she was still not happy about this. A lot has changed since you last saw me, Jon. I'm not defenseless. I realize that, Jon sighed, shaking his head. You got into the twins all by yourself. I'm not saying you're not resourceful. It'd just be safer for you to be in Winterfell where you can be protected. Don't you want to see Sansa and Rickon? Arya avoided her brother's gaze, eyes wandering to the fire. I didn't say that. I've just got other things to do. Other things? What's more important than family? Nothing, Arya snapped, returning her gaze to him. That's the whole point. Our enemies aren't back at home. That's why I'm going to fight them, but that's not for you. She hit her fist on the table. I'm not a lady. I'm not going to return home and sit and wait while you go and fight. I won't. I can't. You have to. You must. You can't be running around like this. For my peace of mind, at the very least. Jon grimaced. The thought of his dear sister being maimed crossed his mind.
Arya turned her nose.
I won't go. I'm staying with you. To do what? Fight by my side. Arya, I'm going to war. I can't allow you to be put in danger, Jon said, considering this common sense. She simmered. I can't believe you. It's not like I don't want to see you. I just saw you again after all this time. I'm overjoyed to see you. I want you to be safe. Okay? You'll be safe in our bannermen in the north, not on a battlefield with me. I'm going into enemy territory, and I won't be able to protect you. I am the head of our house now, and this is what I'm commanding. You are going home. You can't make me, Jon. I will if I have to, Arya, Jon told her. I can, if you won't go willingly. Rosier leaned back, confused as to who she was really looking at. She wondered if her eyes deceived her. This was the last thing she'd expected to hear from her brother. I thought you'd be happy to see me. At her words, Jon got up and went over to her side, gingerly wrapping his arms around her. Careful of her injury, though beside herself with irritation, Arya sighed and welcomed the embrace. I told you I am, he kissed her brow. I'd just rather be sad without you than be happy and have you die with me. The Dothraki took her without a second thought. A maiden as beautiful as she, they'd be stupid not to. Many of the Blood Riders pined after her, some even went as far to touch her. The Khal even spoke of how he would take her that night. It was then that Daenerys herself known, Khal Drogo's Khaleesi. After that no one would come near her. It wasn't allowed. With her Khal being dead, she belonged with the other widowed Khals in Vatsa Dothrak. The Dots Khaleen. Just so happened that this pack of Dothraki was headed there anyway. The trip there was so bad, she was given a horse and a tent. Though the journey was long, after more days than she knew, they reached Vasselthbrock. Her eyes glued to the massive horse statues above her as they entered. If not for the huge unknown hanging over her head, she might be amazed. Nevertheless, this second-time visit wasn't nearly as exciting as the first. All those years ago, the Doxelthine named her child the Stallion who mounts the world. Her soul ached then, a part of her wishing she could have lived that life with her child in Drogo. But that was so long ago, and she had much bigger plans in mind now. She was led inside the village, immediately taken inside a hut, where the rest of the widows waited for her. Daenerys considered all the gray older women from their meager interactions. These women had been here for many years. This was to be the life of a Calaxi once their Kala died. All of them lived here, never allowed to leave. If things had turned out differently, she may have been taken here. A mediocre existence, she decided. She wouldn't allow this to become her, old and gray, just existing, with nothing to prove, nothing to give. But according to one of the other Khaleesi, it would be this, or death. Dany stifled a chuckle. Death sounded better to her than what these women endured. All the Khals were supposed to decide her fate that night. They gathered in the temple dash of the Khaleen near the entrance to the city, dimly lit, aside from 4 huge braziers that illuminated the room. Dany stood on a slightly elevated center stage. Numerous sets of malice-filled eyes stared her down, though she appeared unfazed. The 15 of them continued to stare her down, hoping for her to cower. They'd be sorely disappointed. Some of the Coles sat down, others stood. One of them finally spoke up. Will Drogo sure had him a pretty one. The group of them laughed loudly. Dany didn't flinch. Then a Khal rose, moving closer to her. I'd sure like a few minutes with her in my bed. Maybe we should all have some time with her, another said. Many grumbles of agreement followed. The wise masters of Yunkai want her. They'd give us thousands of horses in exchange. Cal Morrow, the one who first captured Dany, spoke then, crossing his arms. Fuck the masters, I'll take their horses for myself. I think I should have a say, Dane said, in perfect Dothraki, surprising the calls. Morrow scoffed. We don't give a fuck what you want. You aren't Doxacleen. You have no say here. I have all the say I want. I am Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen, Dany cocked her head to the side. And you are small men, you great cores. None of you are fit to lead the Dothraki. But I am, so I think I will. The pack burst into laughter. You crazy cunt, Morrow laughed, slapping his leg. You think we'd serve you? No. He rose from his seat then. No, here's what I think. No, Dosh Colleen, for you. We'll take turns fucking you until you're bloody. Then our blood riders will have a turn. After that, maybe my horse will fuck you. What a dumb cunt. Do you really think we'd ever serve you? Dainty smirked. No, you're not going to serve. Not a second later, sharp shrieks filled the air, diving into the room, filling it. The shrieks continued until they got louder and louder. All the Coles looked at each other, frowning, then back to Dainty. A heavy breeze flew through the thin walls of the hut, nearly toppling it, blowing Dainty's hair. The ground shook, rumbling under their feet, forcing all the Coles to rise. Many ran to the exit, but the door was barred from the other side. The rumbling stopped. Only the sound of Cole's fists hitting the door filled the air. Then low hisses fluttered through the thatch walls, steam seeping in. From all sides, they were surrounded. "What the fuck is going on?" Khal Moros said, retreating from the walls. Then glancing at Dany. "What is happening? I told you you're not going to serve. The only else left for you is to die." Then in a flash, the room seemingly exploded. White-hot fire flying through the walls, torching the insides. Hot plumes hit the cows, roasting most of them to bone immediately. The fire kept coming until the hut collapsed in on itself. Outside, a crowd gathered. A massive throng of people pouring out from across the entire sacred city, having heard the shrieks from all around. Coming to find 3 dragons standing over the burning remains, the temple of the Dush Khaleen. The horrifying sight sent many trembling in fear. Drogon, Viserion, and Rhaegal lifted their heads to the sky and wailed. Moments later, a form stepped out from the flames, moving out to stand where the door used to be. Daenerys Targaryen, the unburnt, walked, largely unaffected by the flames, aside from her clothes that'd been burned off. She stood naked before droves of Dothraki for all them to see. The dragons roared at the sight of their mother, as if taking it as a command. All the Dothraki fell to their faces in submission. A true Khaleesi once more, Dany smirked to herself at the sight of the masses bow to her. It brought a true sense of accomplishment, a joy she hadn't felt in a while. "Caxley," the older man said, nearly whispering. He'd uttered the word many times. It had hit her ear the same way oftentimes, with reverence, only waiting to hear the next command. Though when he said it now, it was different. This time, it's more of a plea. A desperate plea. He'd came back. Yet again. Even though she tried to keep him away twice now. Even after all that, he'd followed her all the way to Vizdothrak. He just wouldn't stay away. Her old bear. They stood on a hill. Vizdothrak, just laying in the distance. All the Dothrak getting ready to move out, the smoke from the fire billowing into the sky. She'd seen him and Dario just before she went into the temple of the Dothraki. They had blocked the door for her. Daenerys and her bear stood a bit apart. His shift shuffled near to her, but then stopped. "I've sent you away 2 times now," she said, holding up 2 fingers. "For your betrayal, and you've returned twice." "Why is that?" "I've only wanted to serve you," Jorah replied. "You've said that many times," Dane smirked, making him half smile. They were silent for a few moments, and then she said, "I can't take you back, and I can't seem to send you away." Taking a few steps forward, only for him retreat back. Jabra shook his head, holding his hands up. "You must send me away." Her face contorted in confusion. Then she watched as he turned up the sleeve on his left arm, revealing the grayscale he'd been hiding. The darkness a stark difference from the rest of his skin, appearing rather repulsive. A shuddering breath left Dane's lips. "Is there a cure?" "I don't know." "Is it going to spread? How long does it take?" "I'm not sure." Joe pursed his lips, rolling the sleeve back down. "Though I know what happens when it gets far enough. I won't let himself get that far. I'll end it far before that." "Sir Jorah, I'm so sorry," Dany whispered, her eyes filling with tears. The sudden emotion surprising her, thought of one of the oldest friends dying a horrible death. No matter what he's done, wasn't pleasant. It hurt more than she expected. "Please, Caxley, don't be," Jorah said. He paused, looking away from her for a moment. "Tyrion Lannister was right. I do love you. I always will. But I have to go. I can't stay. Not like this. Even if you would have me, I'm not fit to serve, which I cannot allow. It hurts. To know the only thing I want to do. I can't." "You can." "I can't, Kaklazi," Jorah said, cutting in. "It's okay." He backed up. "This is goodbye, Kaklazi." With that, he started down the hill behind him, though he wouldn't look away from Dany, until he did, and turned his back. Daenerys took a step forward, wanting to say something. Stop, Sarah Jorah. I've not dismissed you. Slowly, Jorah looked back to her. You swore yourself to me, swore to obey my commands for the rest of your life. At his small nod of acknowledgement, she continued. I command you find the cure, scour the world if you have to. Find it, if it exists. Then return to me. I need you by my side when I take the 7 kingdoms. Jorah seemed taken aback by her words, totally taken off guard. Though he hung on to the words, hearing every word, his disbelief washing away. He'd do his damnedest to obey. Like always, though this time he had a newfound sense of motivation. Before her proclamation to him, his plan was to go somewhere and finish it. Get it over with. Now, though, his resolve was strengthened. He'd find a damn cure. Make way for the Lord. Stark direwolves fluttering over the courtyard to the twins. A beautiful sight for the Northmen gathered in and around the keep of the defunct house Frey. Jon walked out to find riders gallop through the large gates, wide enough to allow for streams of foot and freight traffic that proceeded across the bridges. It easily fit the dozen or so riders that arrived trailing the white trout banners of House Tully. Longclaw aside, Jon reached out his hands with a rather informal smile. Sir Davos, it is good to see you again. Davos chuckled, clasping Jon's hand warmly. Glad to see you alive, son. The Onion Knight looked around. Done pretty well for yourself, I see. Avenged your brother. Clasping his hand on Jon's back, he let himself feel a rather paternal pride in the young lad. I knew you'd be destined for greatness when I saw you. Perhaps when this is all over, you'll be His Grace's hand. Laughing sheepishly, Jon shrugged. While it would be an honor, Starks don't do well in peacetime in the South. While he always enjoyed Davos's company, there were other visitors he had to attend to. Offering one last smile, he turned and gave a shallow bow of respect as the lead rider dismounted. Sir Brendan welcomed to the twins. Gruff and sullen as ever, Brandon, the Blackfish, Tully, nevertheless, seemed satisfied at what he saw of the twins. Can't say this place won't ever smell like cheap wine and old farts, but it's better now that the fucker Walder is dead. He scanned the direwolf sigils. Would have preferred the Tully banner to hang here, but you Starks deserve it, after all. Aye, we do. Motioning for the Blackfish and his men to follow him inside, Jon and Davos flanked the patriarch of House Tully and de facto leader of the Riverlands. Your men can find refreshments in the Great Hall. Relax where Walder Frey died. The Blackfish snorted. You have a sense of humor. Unlike Stannis, being with him was torture, even if I did see River run again. He's your king, show some respect, Davos replied curtly. He's not my king yet. I never bent the knee, nor did any Riverlander. Not yet, at least. I wanted to hear from the man that took the twins first. Sharing a quick glance with Davos, Jon nodded. That can be arranged, along with your family. He quirked an eyebrow. My family? Your nephew and grandnephew are here, as well as your grandniece. Little Edmure, Brynden half-laughed with a scoff. I didn't know he made it. Seemed Walder didn't want to murder him along with my brother, Jon said, hanging his head for a moment. Kept him chained up. His wife and son were essentially confined to their room. The only Freys I didn't strip of their titles or name, though I guess they aren't Freys. The Blackfish regarded him with a curious eye. No, they're not. Thank you, at least House Tully has a future, even if it has to endure my nephew. He's family, but he's a pussy. Always wished my niece Catelyn had a cock. Would have been an excellent lord. Davos noticed Jon stiffen at the mention of Lady Stark. Quickly, he shifted the subject. Perhaps he toughened up while locked up. That tends to change men. We'll see. A bannerin of House Umber opened the door to the Lord Solar. Now Jon's chambers until he could install a new Lord of the Twins, letting the group of men in. Already seated was Arya, casually sharpening needle while it perched in her slinged hand. Ghost resting beside her, rather protective of his little sister. Jon cleared his throat. Sister, we have a guest. I can see that, brother, she said flippantly. Looking up. Hello, Uncle Brendan. I'd get up, but she pointed to her shoulder with an apologetic look. Injured in the line of duty. Brendan's scowl didn't change, while Davos suppressed a chuckle. Jon grinned, knowing she wasn't one for formalities. He had seen that apologetic look before, and knew it was shit. Now that you met my sister, Lady Rosaling. The second person in the Solar needed no introduction. It had been her wedding that started all the mess in the Riverlands. Ever a gentleman, the Blackfish reached out and took the Lady of Riverrun's hand, kissing it. Thank the gods that you are all right, and the child. Blushing faintly, Rosier and Tully nestled the toddler in her arms, the boy fast asleep. Axel, his name is Axel Tully. My lord, a fine name. I shall enjoy watching him grow up. Looking him over, the Blackfish nodded. Looks like his grandfather, my brother, will be a fine lord of Riverrun. I can see it. The Lady Rosalind smiled. Pulling himself a seat, Jon felt something furry nudge into his side. He laughed, looking at Ghost, ruffling his fur and scratching behind his ear. One of the few cathartic things he had left besides spending time with his family, and read the few letters Sam and Aemon sent from the wall, Direwolf lolling his tongue out and mewling happily at the attention. Arya smiled warmly, as did Davos. Rosierling gave a small smile while the Blackfish's scowl slightly softened. Little Axel had finally awoken, watching the big direwolf with awe. The door opened and an Umber bannerman entered. "Me, lord, I present Edmure Tully, Lord of Riverrun." Two other bannermen led in a rather scruffy figure, rail-thin and his clothes hanging on him like bags, but clean-shaven and dressed well. Befitting a poor lord, but a lord nonetheless. Edmure, Rosianne rose, racing over to hug her husband. One she barely had any time to see since arriving at the twins from Riverrun the day before. The Starks and Davos allowed the young family a moment, but not the more practical Blackfish. "Sit down, you fool. You can do that on your own damn time." Sparing his wife and son a tender look, the young and wary lord took a seat beside his uncle. "Lord Stark, once again, and in the presence of my family, thank you for delivering justice for House Tully, as you did my sister and nephew." Jon nodded. "As I said to you weeks ago, you are most welcome, Lord Tybe." He smiled. "I hope we can use this moment of unity to form an alliance between House Tully and the rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms. Name your terms, Lord Stark." Handing the floor to Davos, the Onion Knight cleared his throat. His grace seeks no quarrel with the rightful rulers of Riverrun and is willing to reinstate House Tully as Lord Paramount of the Riverlands, as well as grant them the treasury of the late House Frey, minus 10% to the Starks of Winterfell and 20% to the crown itself. The Blackfish crossed his arms. "Money is money, but what's to happen with the fucking twins themselves? Will my sisters and brothers be safe?" Rosian asked timidly, close to Edmure's side. "Your sisters are safe. They will stay with their husbands, or, if you wish, could be sent to Riverrun as your ladies-in-waiting. The Frey name will die, however. All but you will have their names stripped of them and be made bastards. Any of your male relatives that participated in the Red Wedding still alive will be sent to the wall." Jon sympathized with Rosalind. She seemed nothing like her shit of a father, but now wasn't the time to be too merciful. Rosia naturally was inclined to be far more ruthless. "Be lucky, that's all he's doing, Lady Tully," she said nonchalantly, but it came off as a threat nonetheless. Rosia Lee quieted down, counting her blessings. Eyeing both his sister and Davos, Jon continued, "In addition, I will be naming a new lord to the twins on King Stannis' behalf." "And who would that be, Lord Stark?" asked Edmure. "Edwin Castle, a brave young knight and son of the late Master of Arms at Winterfell." Jon took a deep breath, ready for the firestorm. It came as he expected, although from Edmure rather than Brendan. "A northerner. You're taking the twins for yourself?" He was incredulous. Jon didn't hesitate. "Yes." Without King Stannis' direction, producing a piece of parchment, Devol Seaworth placed it in the middle of the table. "A decree from His Grace Stannis Baratheon, declaring House Castle domain of the twins as a major house answering to House Stark of Winterfell. All it needs is to be joined by Lord Stark's word, and it is done." "You can't do that." "That is where you're wrong, Uncle," Arya cut in. "The North suffered the most by Walder Frey's treachery. Thousands dead, a dozen houses gutted of their heirs, its king butchered and his wolf's head sewn to his body and paraded around." Jon's head whipped around, looking at Arya with hidden shock. That was a detail he hadn't known. "If I hadn't killed Walder, I'd have done it now." Arya seethed with rage. Winter came for House Frey, and now winter came for the twins. Jon opened to retort. Brynden silenced Edmure with a wave of the hand. "I don't doubt the North didn't suffer, Lady Stark. I'm no lady." The Blackfish actually chuckled at that, but the fact of the matter is that the Riverlands suffered the most during this war. You can't just take away one of the linchpin estates for yourself and expect us bend the knee to Stannis. Jon looked at each of the Tallies, a small smile reaching his face. The Riverlands will receive its due. They'll receive all of what they had prior to this war and more. All from where the blame truly belongs. He leaned forward, but that won't happen unless you bend the knee to Stannis. Arya beamed at her older brother. He truly was the powerful lord that she had always hoped for him to be. We have the forces of the Stormlands north and free folk under Stannis' command, along with a significant contingent of Crownlands forces pledged to Dragonstone. No one knew the breadth of Stannis' kingdom than Davos. If Jon would win the throne for Stannis, Davos would keep it for him, or so the common saying went among the High Lords under the Stag King. We are currently in Dinis with the Lord Protector of the Vale. Beradish. Ha. Brynden smacked the table. Good luck trusting that cunt, he pursed his lips. But I see your point. Cersei's smart, but booing up the Lord of Highgarden leaves her with nearly nothing. North Stormlands, Vale, and Wildlings, with our forces in the mix, there would be no stopping them by the bitch. Uncle, hasn't our kingdom suffered enough? Glaring at his nephew, the Blackfish grunted. And we'll fucking suffer worse if we just let the war for the throne continue endlessly. It has to end now. So, he nudged Edmure. You're the Lord of Riverrun. Do what you have to do. Sighing, Edmure stood, extending his hand. I will need to meet with Stannis himself, but if he agrees to proper compensation for the Riverlands when Cersei is defeated, then the Riverlands stand with him. Relieved and a little bit triumphant, Jon took Edmure's hand, packed all but secured. Fire crackling in the hearth, Sansa was going over grain reports with Rickon. When there was a knock on the door to her solar, "Come in," she called, slightly apprehensive, despite not needing to. Nevertheless, she relaxed when Usse entered. "What is it?" "Old Man Wolkin said to give Yatzes," she drawled, tossing 2 folded dispatches. "Came in today by Raven. One's from the White Wolf. Others some kind of bird." Sansa grabbed Jon's first. As she read it, a smile spread across her face. The twins are officially part of the North now, and he's sending Arya back home. Or Jazz, coming home? Rickon's eyes widened with happiness. Both had been ecstatic at the news that their long-lost sister was alive after all, and further reuniting House Stark where they deserved to be filled them with glee. And the other one, picking it up, she noticed the mockingbird atop it. Littlefinger, Sansa breathed. This won't be good. Probably wants to discuss an alliance. Wait, Sansa, wouldn't someone who is married to our aunt be perfect for Jon and the king? Even with him growing into a tall, burly northern warrior, his gray eyes still shone with an innocence that was lacking in Jon's or Sansa's. I mean, the pack sticks together, right? Mother was always saying that about us, and her family was always close as well. What can I say to that? Honestly, she envied Rickon for his boyish naivete, such as she was before heading south to King's Landing. Sharing a look with Awasha, Sansa's eyes flickered to the door, silently communicating to the wildling woman. All right, little lord, time for your swordsplay lessons. Rickon groaned. That's supposed to be 2 hours after lunch. It has been 2 hours after lunch. She pointed to the hourglass resting on Sansa's desk. You know that Sir Willem is waiting in the courtyard, and Yaxiad need to be able to defend yourself. Now go. Shoo. Rolling his eyes, Rickon nevertheless complied, standing, giving Sansa a hug that was promptly and lovingly returned, and stomped out the door. Sansa sighed. Thank you for that. The wilding woman snorted, plopping down in the seat that Rickon left and crossing her arms. Now, what was that all about? She pointed to the unopened dispatch. You can't trust? That's putting it mildly. Sighing once again, she broke the seal open with a knife and unfurled it, reading the contents. Dearest Sansa, it brings me joy to find out that your brother has secured the twins. Walder Frey deserved to die for how he betrayed your family, how he betrayed your mother, of whom I loved since I was a boy. I count down the days till you put down the lion as you did the flayed man and the bridge. Why did Sansa have the feeling that Littlefinger would rather be writing the exact same words only with a condolence for the death of Jon? Because you're not an idiot. Jon was truly one of a kind. Sansa figured that even if he were here, that she'd be given the same level of authority, but it was still easier to deal with the opponent one knew as the sole bargainer. Pursing her lips, she read on. Now that the Riverlands will undoubtedly declare for Stannis, the more cautious lords of the Vale are certain to drop their reluctance to my urging to side on behalf of those that avenged the deaths of Jon Arryn and my beloved Catelyn. I will be sending a raven to the Stag King for a parlay in Harrenhal personally, as the castle is still mine, but I don't fear that such a meeting would go as well if you were not there, my little bird. Shouldn't be too hard a journey if you push it. Sweet Robin is eager to see his beloved cousin again, as am I. All my love. Uncle Peacher. A shudder of revulsion passed over Sansa's body at the salutation line. That the man who used her to drive her aunt insane and then sold her to the Boltons. She was only barely healed from that alone. Now he was trying to claim he cared for her. Sansa wasn't fooled, but Padir Baelish wasn't someone she could dismiss or have executed. We'll have to tread carefully. So I gather that he's shitting out of his mouth as he talks, huh? Osea may have been blunt and rather libertine regarding courtly manners, but the new Sansa appreciated it. There were no heirs with her, and she was proven loyal to House Stark. With Jon leaving her in charge, Sansa had come to trust Osea as her unofficial hand. I'll take your silence as a yes. Padir Baelish, he is a coward who gets his way through blackmail, secrets, and trickery. Those kinds of men get their teeth kicked in up in the true north, are fed to the shadow cats. A chuckle left Sansa's face. Oh, would that be satisfying? As tempting as that may be, Littlefinger also has the entire Vale on his side. Osha blinked. That's a big deal, right? One of the two kingdoms that still has an intact army probably could secure Stannis and Jon 20,000 men at least. Probably more. She folded the letter. I'm going to have to pack. Don't tell me you're actually accepting his offer. Probably a trap. Aye, a trap, but I doubt he thinks I'm anything more than a broken shell, leaning on Jon for support. Sansa stood, brushing at her skirts. I'll bring Lyanna Mormont, Alys Karstark, and Wyman Manderly with me. Easier to disguise myself when the she-bear does the talking for the both of us. She scribbled some words on a piece of parchment, folding it for the rookery. I'll get to pick up Arya. They both left the Solar walking across the balcony overlooking the inner courtyard. And you don't trust the White Wolf to do the negotiating? Did she trust Jon to do this? Could the darker, stronger Jon Stark do what the beaten, honorable whelp on snow couldn't? It was clear to Sansa, I love Jon, but Littlefinger would chew him up and spit him out. I have to go. Get out there. Fucking cunts. Go. Enjoying the procession of gloomy and terrified noblemen, Dario Naharis gestured with his sword. The second sons shepherding the line of prisoners began knocking them about. Fists flying and whips cracking. Now you know what the whip is like, assholes. Go faster. Jeers and spit from the other sellswards followed. Reluctantly, the trembling prisoners increased their speed. Truth be told, the stone-cold Unsullied lined along the walls terrified them, far more than the gregarious sellswards. The bloodthirsty Dothraki screamers that seemed to be everywhere were worse than the freed slave soldiers. 3 screeching bellows from the stands of the fighting pits made many stumble upon the ground. Yelps of fear joined with the pungent stench of soiled garments among the stalled prisoners. Amber eyes watching them with barely contained rage. It was the 3 great dragons that scared them the most. Ones that single-handedly forced the surrender of the attacking fleet, that led the attack of the Dothraki to butcher the sons of the Harpy to the last man. And now they watched over them, lambs to the slaughter. Herded into a single open space, a raised platform housed their one hope of salvation, or alternately, the Angel of Death herself. Daenerys Targaryen was a beautiful woman, hell's considered by many to be the most beautiful woman in the world. In the fine silks of vibrant color that she normally wore, she was breathtaking. The black Targaryen battle dress was no less breathtaking, but also exuded a shroud of majesty and terror to all comers that stood in her way. The collection of masters, merchants, other assorted noblemen, sellsword captains, and handlers of slave soldiers knew they were witnessing Visenya Targaryen reborn. Daxleo bounded up the steps to stand by Daenerys' side, only to be rebuffed by the silent Grey Worm who guarded her direct flank with Ser Barristan. Looking at Daenerys for assistance, and finding none, Dario nodded in resignation and took a place next to the MP and Lord Varys, waiting for the Lady Missandei to begin. You stand before Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen, first of her name, the Unburnt, rightful queen of the Andals, the Rhonar, and the First Men, queen of Meereen. Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, protector of the realm, breaker of chains and mother of dragons. Silence followed, pierced only by the coughs of the prisoners and grunts of the dragons behind the platform. "Gathered masters," began Daenerys in High Valyrian. "You have engaged in the mass suffering of human beings for your entire adult lives, profiting from it. Against my better judgment, I granted you mercy each time I was victorious. A mercy not repaid to me, or my subjects." "Foreign whore!" one rather brave young master shouted. "You and your eunuchs and sellsword cocksuckers will never subjugate us." Drogon's angered screech silenced him. Of a regal demeanor till then, Daenerys' fair skin curled as she smiled. One of half triumph, half satisfaction. "You are correct there, good master. I will not subjugate you." She let her words hang. "My mercy has reached the end of its tether. In its place will rest's fire and blood." All three dragons hooted shrilly, deafening ears. Realization dawned on the prisoners. Many pleaded for mercy, many shouted their innocence. Still, many just collapsed onto the ground in fearful heaps. Only a few stood tall, stoic in the face of death. Daenerys at least had some respect for them. The others were no more than insects. Not bothering with them anymore, she turned to her children. "Dracarys." Maws opening, all screams of the condemned were drowned out in the sheer fury of the dragon fire, shooting out to envelop them in a cloud of red-orange that bathed all around it in a searing heat. Missandei and Tyrion, Varys and Daario, even the hardened warriors Barristan and Grey Worm looked away from the carnage. But not Daenerys. She stayed to watch the whole thing unfold. Watch the might of her dragons unleash fire and blood upon her enemies. Tyrion and Barristan counseled mercy the night prior to the battle upon her return. But Daenerys refused. Did they give mercy to the children they crucified? To the innocents they slaughtered? She'd asked them. The answer spoke for itself, and Daenerys gave the same mercy back to them. It was over in barely a minute, nothing but a pile of ash remaining where 36 men once stood. The dragons let out one collective roar before leaping into the air, massive wing beats propelling them out of the fighting pits. Once they had disappeared, Daenerys calmly motioned to her blood riders, hands resting on her abdomen. She descended the steps and walked towards the exit, advisors in tow. Barristan exchanged a glance to Tyrion as they followed their queen into their queen's solar. Daenerys strolled out on the balcony, leaving everyone inside. She stared out over Meereen, seeing her children dance with each other in the distance. Her palms rested on the barister before her. Her eyes shot over to the still smoking ships of the former masters. The sight did provide some relief, and witnessing the destruction of the masters was an interesting feeling as well. Never had she fully enjoyed using her dragons for death. Yet, watching the masters burn down to their bones allowed her let a breath she'd been holding for some time. Then her eyes set west, over the vast sea, unable to see to the other side. She wondered what lies on the other side. Tyrion had told her some things, but none of that portrayed enough to actually know. She couldn't relate to his words. Still, it excited her somewhat. Being able to finally cross the sea. The unknown of what she'd find there unsettled her, though. Oftentimes she'd call Westeros her home, despite the fact she'd never set foot there. After being born on Dragonstone, she was taken directly across the narrow sea for safety. Of course, she had no memory of her ancestral seat. The only thing she knew about Westeros was the things she'd been told, which felt unnatural given she was supposed to rule over them. Feeling a presence behind her, she turned. Tyrion stood there, he spoke. "We are going to begin now, my queen." Daenerys didn't answer, only shifting to go back inside, her dress whipping. All of her advisors sat around a long table in her solar. She didn't sit, just resting her hands on her chair at the end. "Everyone looked to her," she said plainly. "Don't let me hold you all up." Everyone of importance inside her camp gathered there. Ser Barristan, Tyrion, Grey Worm, Missandei, and Daario, with 2 new additions some days ago, brought the arrival of Yara and Theon Greyjoy. They fled their homeland after their uncle Euron took over. They offered Danae their ships in exchange for help in securing Pike. The extra ships were very welcome at the time, so she accepted. They all took a seat before her. She still stayed up. Tyrion cleared his throat, laying palms on the table. "With the new ships from the Greyjoys, we'll be able to transport the vast majority of our troops." "Everyone?" Dany asked, smirking slightly. "Yes, my queen," Ser Barristan answered. "Dothraki Unsullied and the Second Sons." Dario eyed the queen, feeling confident, but much to his dismay, she looked away, though she said, "Good." "Where are we headed with?" said ships. Yara spoke up. "Dragonstone," Tyrion said. "Doesn't Stannis hold it?" "No, not for months. He needs the men elsewhere," said Barristan. "He used it as a stronghold for many years, but it never meant enough to him to keep men there to hold it. He needs all the men he can get with him," Tyrion added. "And where is he?" Daenerys inquired. "Somewhere in the Riverlands, we don't know specifically," Tyrion shrugged, "but he's most likely headed to the Vale to try to secure them to his side." "Will he be able to?" Tyrion sighed. "Most likely, his relationship with the Starks will be quite helpful. I imagine the Vale has the most intact army in all of Westeros, along with Dorne," Barristan pointed out. "Neither of them have been in a battle since the rebellion. We're negotiating with Dorne, while we have no contacts in the Vale." "Doesn't matter," Dany said, tone unwavering. "Just more for Drogon." Several of her advisors seemed uneasy at such sentiment. "Well, they won't outnumber us. It's just that the Vale has quite the cavalry," Tyrion said. "Better than thousands of Dothraki on horseback?" Dottie asked, somewhat incredulous. "I don't know, my queen." "Unlikely," Dany shook her head. "What about Jon Stark?" Theon spoke up over everyone. "He just took the twins, I heard." "He's sworn to Stannis," Tyrion frowned. "I knew that boy once, but he's changed a lot since then." "What'd you mean?" "Well, for starters, he was a bastard." "Is he not now?" Yarch snorted. "Stannis legitimized him," Theon told his sister. "From what I hear, he's quite the military leader," Barristan smirked, adding his voice to the discussion. "Tearing through the Boltons and Walder Frey, I heard he hacked through Walder with his own sword." "Enough about this Stark," Dany snapped. "If he's as good as you all say, he'll bend the knee to his rightful queen. If not, no matter, him and Stannis are no match for Drogon, Viserion, and Rhaegal. Why don't you just take those 3 dragons and fly them to King's Landing?" Yak snorted. The war would be over rather quickly, with Cersei at least. Dany began to open her mouth to speak, but Tyrion was faster. "At the loss of hundreds of thousands of innocents, there'll be no one left for her to rule." Yaris scoffed. "No one would miss all those swineherds." Tyrion pulled a face. "What? Women and children all." Dany held her hands up and raised her voice. "Enough. I will not take my dragons to the Red Keep. I don't want to rule a people that hate me, or that are nothing but a pile of ashes." Her satisfaction from earlier only applied to her enemies, not helpless civilians. All her life she's tried to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Tyrion looked at Dany and nodded. "Yes, the people will choose you. They can't choose you if they're dead." "As we did," Missandei added. Dany locked eyes with her best friend for a few moments, saying all she needed, then actually began to speak again. "Once we make land, then what? By the time we reach Westeros, it will have taken us at least a month, if not more, if the winds aren't kind," Yara told her. "By then, Stannis will have likely secured the Vale," Tyrion surmised. "Where will he go next? Further south? We will know more when we land." Dany huffed suddenly and turned her back. "Get everything ready, I want to leave as soon as possible." "That's enough for today." No particular order, everyone began to shuffle out of the room, though Dany needed to speak with one of them in particular. "Not you, Daenerys." She walked back out onto the terrace, waiting for Dario to follow, which he did. When she felt his form behind her, she turned to him. Dario moved to stand next to her. The two of them had enjoyed many intimacies of late, but all that had to stop now. "I hoped you'd wanted to see me," Dario purred, stepping closer to her. But she put a hand on his chest. "Sir Barristan wants me to leave you here, Lord Tyrion, as well." He laughed. "But you told them no." "Not because of the reasons flooding your brain right now," Dany said, taking her hand away. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You'll come with us west, but you won't share my bed." Dario scoffed, backing up. "You're letting those dusty cunts tell you what to do." "No one tells me what to do," Dainty warned, pointing a finger at him. "But they are my advisors for a reason. I wouldn't allow them to speak to me if I didn't value their advice. I can't be spending nights in bed with a sellsword." "Why not?" "You don't think kings and queen don't have lovers? Count yourself lucky. I'm bringing you it all." Dainty's voice turned stern. "I certainly don't have to, but I see no reason to leave men that fight for me here when I'll need them across the sea. You will serve as my sword, as you have before." Dario crossed his arms. "I'll kick that fucking imp." "You'll do no such thing," Dany sighed. "Across the sea, I'll need to make allies, and the best way to secure an alliance is with marriage." Who are you going to marry now? I'm not sure, Dany replied, turning her head to Murrain. Some old lord? I hope not. You don't have to, you know, Dario said, entreating on her space again. She didn't look at him. I've heard enough, you can go. He rolled his eyes and stepped off. When he moved away, she added, Send for Cersei Baratheon, I need him. Resting in her loosely closed palm was the pin for her hand. The old knight was the only one she could trust to give it to. There was a pause. Yes, my queen. His tone was frosty, bitter. Daenerys realized out she really did not care much for the sellsword. She sighed and returned her gaze to the vast sea before her. Feeling surprisingly anxious to cross it on the morrow, running his hands along the gray stone of the battlements, Stannis gazed upon the massive spires of Harrenhal Castle, stabbing into the sky, Harren the Black's attempt to defy the very gods themselves. Fat lot of good, it did him. The gods struck him down, their fury being that of Aegon the Conqueror atop Balerion the Dread. Even now, the melted stone rested atop the ruined towers, a grisly corpse visible to all as a reminder of Targaryen greatness. The same Targaryens and dragons that were due to arrive in Westeros sometime in the future. Such was where Stannis' mind was. Davos spoke to his side, retelling tales of victories Stannis and his armies had won. How they ended up from a broken mess on Dragonstone into an army that had conquered everything north of the great Harrenhal Castle. Not enough, never enough, while the dragon exists. Lord Stark will be with us within the fortnight, Lady Stark only days after from Winterfell. The king managed to hear the last sentence. Lady Stark? Oi, the Lady Sansa. She told her brother that her presence would help with negotiations to secure the Vale's loyalty. With Lysa Arryn dead, they'd be more inclined to break their neutrality and support our claim to the throne. The Vale, untouched masses of fresh troops, scarred not by war, thousands upon thousands of them. If I am to defeat Daenerys Targaryen and her dragons, I will need the capital. If treating with Petyr Baelish and giving in to his demands was needed, then he would do what was needed. Good. I look forward to hosting Lord Baelish. Davos raised an eyebrow. What are you willing to concede to him? Whatever is necessary. The king took one last look out at the god's eye, letting the gentle rippling of the dark water calm him. I shall take my leave now. I suggest you do the same after a long ride here. Of course, our grace. He found her by the fire. She's closer to it than Melisandre. Stannis wasn't surprised. The true queen of the Seven Kingdoms had been a more devoted convert to the faith of Rosier than he. Even after he had seen the truth at Hardhome, she bade the life-giving flames a greater devotion. Stannis was hard, dispassionate in the face of his destiny. Selyse, she had the zeal and fanaticism for the both of them. My queen, he said, stepping close to her, reaching to touch her shoulder. You should get your rest. The delegates should arrive on the morrow. I can see in the fire, my husband. Her voice was far away, eyes wide, almost alight. I see greatness for you, for us. Gently pulling her to him, Stannis gave his wife a kiss on the forehead. He hadn't laid with her in years, but still respected the woman who had given him his beautiful Shireen. Even if only Davos and I see it, she is beautiful. I know, my dear, the sword standing athwart the world, baiting the night to halt. Her lips contorted into a wishful grin. You will have a son, my king, a proper heir to claim your legacy. It is of no consequence, wife. Shireen will marry and produce an heir whom I will adopt as my own. Our line will live on. C.S. hissed, turning away. My daughter, I was too weak, under the sway of the false gods of my father and brother. The Lord punished me for that. Punished me with a monster. The back of Stannis' hand silenced her, bright red handprint marring her pale cheek. Do not call my daughter a monster, he ground out. One more time and you will die. Silence roaring through the chamber for what seemed like hours. Finally, Selyse fell to tears. Forgive me, my king. As I said, I am weak. Her head fell into her hands. I just worry for you about threats to you. Great victories have vaulted you back into true contention over your throne, and any even seeming weakness could destroy you. Mood turning on a gold dragon, she snarled, pacing back and forth. The lion bitch, currently sitting on your throne, the dragon whore, ready to finish what her mad father started, Jon Snow. While each of the first two names were said with hate, Selyse saved the last for a particular venom. Stannis furrowed his brows. Lord Stark, he had gotten used to a lot of his wife's rantings, casting demons at their enemies while holding up Melisandre as a great savior. Now, though, Stannis was completely befuddled. He is one of my generals, my queen, not an enemy. He's plotting against you. I know that bastard is doing it. He is not a bastard, my dear. I legitimized him. She waved it off. That filth is still a product of the lust Eddard Stark had for a common whore. Give him a new name doesn't make him any less of a greedy, conniving bastard. Her eyes turned to him, wide with a wild fury. Don't you see, my king? He is going to betray you. Turning away, Stannis snorted. You're as mad as the Mad King. But Selyse wouldn't let it go. No, you must listen to me. You accuse my most loyal supporter of treason? You're delusional if you think the man that helped win my comeback, win the North, Riverlands, and now on the cusp of the Vale as well. That's my point, my king. Eyes hard, Stannis nevertheless turned to allow his wife to get the rant out of her system. Selyse jumped at the opportunity. You won everything to get you here, but I hear what the men say. I hear them speak, not of the Stang of Fire, but the White Wolf, the wrath of the North screaming south from the wall like a blizzard, saving his siblings and avenging his father and brother, killing all that wronged House Stark. He's done that, and I am proud of the lad. Sincerity dripped from Stannis' voice. The boy was like the son he always dreamed of having, when he couldn't have, that Robert was too drunk to see he didn't have, and Rensley was too busy buggering boys to care about having. When Davos decides to head home to his family, Jon Stark will be my hand and we will defeat the night together. Rebuild this broken land together. Saxley stared at him as if he had 3 heads. No, you don't see? He is slowly turning your men against you, making them love him, not you. That bastard is doing what he's doing best, coveting a trueborn's birthright and stealing it. I've had enough of this, Stannis growled. Do whatever you wish. Sleep, brood, rant, or go to the 7 hells for all I care. I am going to sleep and won't hear another minute of this rubbish. Thankfully, she had the sense to shut up before he did something he'd regret. Perhaps she is right, a little voice deep in his mind expressed. Stannis shook the thought. Rubbish, the king fell asleep as soon as his head hit the pillow. Are you nervous? Jon asked from beside Arya, watching as the first of the Winterfell party rode into their camp. Direwolf banners fluttering in the wind. Looking up at him, Arya sighed. No, not nervous. Not the complete truth. But Arya's life had been filled with shades of gray. I love her, but Saints and I never got along, and I don't expect it to change. Jon sighed. She's changed greatly, like both of us. He cleared his throat. The lone wolf dies, Arya. And the pack survives. Her lip curled up. You know just what to say, don't you? He grinned, spotting his other sister. I try, though I'm not a bloody poet. Dismounting her horse with ease, as far a cry from the romantic, giggling maiden that had first left the North so long ago, Sansa stepped gracefully forward until she was face to face with her brother. Without hesitation, he embraced her, kissing her cheek. I'm glad to see you again, sister. Same to you, Jon. She pulled back, gazing at him with conviction. You avenged Robb and Mother. A firm nod. I did. It felt good. The darkness coursed through him every time the death of Walder Frey replayed in his mind. Jon seemed to revel in it. Though he felt guilty at times for enjoying such darkness and bloodlust, he never regretted killing the old cunt. He'd do it again, gladly. From the steel in Sansa's blue eyes, she understood and approved. Only one remains. Cersei, at last, Sansa's gaze met Arya's. The 2 sisters sizing each other up for the first time in years, since they were at each other's throats more often than not. I see that you are well after your fight. More or less, Arya shrugged, emotionless. Her gray eyes narrowed. Do I have to call you Lady Stark now? Sansa's lips remained flat. In public, yes. Suddenly, the corner of her mouth curved upward. But in private, I'll make an exception for you. Both sisters bursting into huge grins. They practically jumped into each other's embrace. I missed you, Arya, Sansa breathed into her hair. When the older sister pulled back to look at Arya, she expected a continued smile. Instead, the younger girl raised her eyebrows and cocked her head to the side. The momentary joy of the embrace gone, Arya said. You haven't changed a bit. Sansa frowned, backing up fully. You've been gone a long time. A lot has changed. Same old Sansa, I see. Arya shrugged, putting her hands behind her back, shifting a bit. Perhaps it's just that I'm better at acting like a normal person, Sansa smirked. I've never been normal. Wrapping his arms around both of his sisters, Jon laughed at the whole exchange. Come on, let's get back on the march. We're less than a day away from Harrenhal. Several hours later, Sansa narrowed her eyes at the massive spires that made up the largest castle in the Seven Kingdoms. Although for her it wasn't the impressive size of Harren the Black's undoing or the melted stone that served as a reminder of the dragon fire that roasted him and his line alive that perturbed her. It was the fluttering mockingbird banners that flanked those of the flaming stag heart ones that served as Stannis' sigil. I didn't know he still controlled it, she murmured out loud, thinking no one could hear her. Turns out someone did. Who still controls it? Sansa couldn't help but snort, a ghost of a grin forming on her face. Arya's senses were as sharp as ghosts. She should have known that as long as her younger sister rode at the head of the Stark column with her and Jon, anything said would be heard by her. The banners on the walls, Arya's brows furrowed. Stannis never controlled Harrenhal. I know, I was here at the time. The memories of being a prisoner here were not ones she wished to remember, but the North did remember. Not the stags, the mockingbird. That's the sigil of House Baelish. Her sister frowned darkly. Baelish, another memory she would rather forget. Jon, meanwhile, clicked his tongue. Looks like Littlefinger made quite a haul for himself. The Vale and Harrenhal. A frown crossed his lips as the column grew closer and closer to the massive gate. I am not looking forward to this. Snakes like him disconcert me. The guards atop the walls were ready for them. Open the gate for the White Wolf, they shouted, many gawking at the infamous Northerner, wanting to be able to tell their grandchildren they had once caught a glimpse of the wrath of the North. Sansa leaned towards her siblings as the gate opened, her words for them and them alone. Let me do most of the talking, please. We can speak for ourselves, Saint Erosia huffed. This isn't a comment on your abilities, sister, or your intelligence. But Littlefinger is slippery. Bluntness doesn't work with him. He is a snake, yes. So, you also need to be a snake. She took in Arya's grudging respect, and Jon wore a pained look. The events of the last few years had hardened all of them, and it was left to Jon to accept most of the grief and blame for all four of them, Rickon included. It hurt Sansa and was endearing at the same time. Offering him a smile, she reached out and patted his hand, still on the reins. The pack survives, Jon. This earned a return smile from him and Arya. Aye, it does. While the main body of the northern forces moved towards the massive camp growing on the tourney grounds outside Harrenhal, the three Starks proceeded with their detachment of 20 household guards towards the receiving ground outside the inner wall of the keep. Waiting there were the king, Lord Davos, Princess Shireen, and several of the Baratheon King's Guard. Without prompting, they all dismounted their horses and knelt for the king. I present you the victorious Northern Army, your grace. Rise, replied Stannis, hiding the smallest of smiles. Such was high praise from Stannis. He never smiled. Davos and Shireen were beaming. Taking stock of the two women, Stannis nodded. Lady Sansa, welcome to Harrenhal. I am glad we could meet once again. Sansa added another curtsy. The pleasure is mine, your grace. Catelyn Stark hadn't skimped on teaching her eldest in the fineries of southern etiquette. Stannis' eye turned to the smaller woman. And this must be the Lady Arya. Your brother told me how much of a spitfire you were. Gray eyes inspected the king head to toe. My father died supporting your claim, she said simply. Sansa glared sharply while Jon sighed. But you helped our brother right the wrongs of the past. That earns my support. Both of Arya's siblings visibly relaxed. A snort left Stannis. He may have been hard, but also fair. Shireen, please escort the ladies to their chambers. Of course, father. The cheery princess motioned for Sansa and Arya to follow her, which they did after each kissing Jon on the cheek. Soon, it was just Jon, Davos, and the king. Lord Stark, Stannis greeted, clasping hands with Jon. Jon smirked. It's good to see you, your grace. You've been busy, the stag remarked. All in your name, Jon replied, gesturing towards the gates of Harrenhal at the Northern and Tully army massing outside. They both began walking. For the most part, that is. Davos chuckled. All expected, Walder Frey did kill your brother. Jon's eyes darkened. Frey deserved every bit of what he got. Neither of the others disagreed. Where is her grace? Stannis grunted quietly under his breath, limping slightly, his leg still ailing him. Devos and Shireen had chided him about it, but he still refused to carry a walking stick on all but the worst days. "The Queen isn't feeling well," he answered cryptically, leaving it at that. "I expect your sister will assist with securing the veil." "Yes, I've already spoken with her about it." Stannis grunted. "I don't look forward to dealing with this snake." Batsleash. "I want to be done with this as soon as possible." "I feel similarly, Your Grace," Jon nodded. "I don't trust Littlefinger." "Baelish is her uncle by marriage," Devos commented. "Certainly, there's a family bond." Scoffing, the king gave him a sharp look before turning back to Jon. "Lord Davios hasn't made the acquaintance of Lord Baelish. At least your sister told you enough about him. The man is worse than a snake. I'd rather deal with a viper than he explained, for Davios's benefit. The hand nodded, understanding enough. "I've dealt with enough people like that. They'll be loyal enough, if you remain the winning side. At this point, we are winning." "I'm not so sure about that." Stannis grimaced as his leg twinged, but they kept walking. "My letters to Highgarden and Sunspear were rebuffed." Jon frowned. "I would think Dorne and the Reach would wish to defeat Cersei." "Oh, they do, but they are siding with Daenerys Targaryen," Davos chimed, catching Jon's sudden stiffening. "She hasn't arrived yet, but it appears we have a three-way conflict coming." The discomfort of the king was growing and growing, but Stannis was stubborn. "Which is why we need the Vale in addition to the North Riverlands and my Stormlanders. I have a plan, but need Littlefinger and his troops to even hope for victory." Mind still on the image of the silver dragon from his dreams, it took Jon a few moments to respond. "Don't worry, Your Grace. If there's anyone up to the task of securing you those troops, it's Sansa." He trusted her implicitly, and the king in hand trusted him with the fate of the Seven Kingdoms. The Maester said that the Great Hall of Harrenhal was where Harren the Black and his sons hid during Aegon the Conqueror's assault upon the castle, praying that the defenses would save them. It didn't work. Balion the Black Dread engulfing the room in a tongue of flame so hot that it melted the very stone. The ill-fated Mad King of the Riverlands didn't even have a single ring left to identify where in the hall he had died. When Aegon gave the castle to a loyal follower, he commanded that the melted spires be left as a warning to those that defied House Targaryen. The Great Hall had been rebuilt, however, and with high coffered ceilings and the most brilliant of stained glass, Jon had to admit it was a beauty. Given the size of the retinues involved, this was the only room considered to hold the parlay. Stannis sat at the head of the table, joined by the Queen, the first time she had been seen in public since the royal couple arrived at Harrenhal, and Ser Devos. Directly adjacent were the Stormlands, represented by Arstan Selmy of Harvest Hall, and the North, represented by Jon, Sansa, and Arya. To the left of the North were the wildlings under Tormund and Carsey, while to the right of the Stormlanders were Edmure and Brynden Tully's Rivermen. And finally, directly opposite the king was the Vale. Robin Arryn sat at the head, but it was clear by his short attention span that those that flanked him were the real powers to be in the Mountain Kingdom. Yairos of Runstone was well respected. Lord Protector Petyr Baelish, on the other hand, "Well, I must say, Lord Stannis," grinned the minor lord that had ended up one of the top power brokers in the Seven Kingdoms, "you certainly have a talent for pulling victory out of the jaws of defeat." The scowl on Stannis' face deepened. Most took it as a sign of disapproval and disgust. While there was plenty of that, Davis and Jon knew the king's leg was acting up again. It had been fine for a moon turn, only to be soiled again only days before. "I shall take that as a compliment," Stannis finally stated. "Say what one wanted," he had grit, "but it's King Stannis. You shall refer to the one true king of the Seven Kingdoms by his honorific Lord Baelish," Davos said firmly. Littlefinger was not perturbed. "He is not the king of my dear good son, Lord Arryn. Not yet, at least." The same unctuous, manipulative smile crossed his face. "That is the question that we are here to settle." "What I don't understand is how we're expected to treat with wildlings," scoffed Lord Ross, directing an accusatory finger at the clustered chieftains and magnaras. "They are nothing but thieves and savages." Angry growls came from the free folk. "Well, what do we expect us to do?" Carsey spat. "Stay in the desolate true north with barely any food to feed ourselves after all of you southerners walled us off?" "Yes," commented Edmure Tully. "My sister wrote to me about all the wilding raids in the north. As far as I'm concerned, the only good wilding is a dead wilding." "How's about I show you what we thence do to prissy cunts?" snarled Sigorn, an uproar nearly ensuing. Jon shot out of his chair. Silence, heads turned, most in shock, at the normally quiet Lord of Winterfell erupt in a sudden fury. Selyse glared, Stannis and Sansa nodded in pride, while Davos and Arya almost split their faces open with their smiles. Eyes meeting those of every High Lord assembled, Jon was prepared to play the adult in the room. Lords and ladies, we are here not to squabble like children. Only our enemies win when that happens. Small Jon Umber smacked his palm against the table. Hey, dozy or cunts want fucking Cersei Lannister fucking her brother in the Red Keep forever? If there was someone that all of them hated, it was Cersei. House Lannister murdered Jon Arryn, burned and raped through the Riverlands, killed Ned Stark and Robb Stark, gutted the Stormland's favorite son, and fought the friend of the free folk. All wanted her head on a pike. So, I take it that not only do you wish us to pledge to you your grace, Littlefinger deftly moved to Stannis while keeping an eye on Jon and Sansa, but also to fight to defeat Cersei and secure your throne for you. Yes, the king responded. I almost took King's Landing before. Almost is the key word there, your grace. What makes you think you can take it again? Stannis pursed his lips, fighting a stabbing pain in his leg. With my capable hand, Lord Davos, and my master of war, Jon Stark. Jon's eyes widened at the new title bestowed upon him. Arya punched his hip as a belated congratulations. We have liberated the North from the kings laying Lannister lapdogs of House Bolton, crushed the Kingslayer in the Riverlands, reclaimed the Riverlands for House Tully, and wiped out the traitors of House Frey. Our army stands ready to deliver the final blow and take on Cersei. Littlefinger nodded. Good points all. Well, if that is the case, why do you need the Knights of the Vale? We can bend the knee when you have the Iron Throne. Daenerys Targaryen sails for Westeros. Davos answered Littlefinger's question. She has a Dothraki horde, crack slave soldiers, and 3 dragons. If we are to survive her wrath, we will need a united front. Dragons? Lord Arryn's interest was piqued. I want to see the dragons, Uncle Patey. Many of the Vale Lords shifted uncomfortably at their lord's immaturity. The Lord Protector took it in stride, ruffling the boy's hair. In time, sweet Robin. Wanting to spare his lord the smirks of the Northmen and Rivermen, and outright laughs of the free folk, Royce stood. You don't mean to pit us against a dragon. The night is dark and full of terrors, Lord rose. No one had seen Melisandre enter, but there she was, stealing the show. Long red hair shimmered as if literally alight, eyes burning, boring on every man and woman present. Only by banding behind the prince that was promised may we defeat our foes and bring the dawn. Royce scowled. I'm well aware of your strange cult, Red Witch. She met his gaze without shrinking, strong and proud. A terrible war is coming, my lord. The one true deity has preordained it. Those who do not stand with the promised prince are doomed to hellfire, the likes of which Westeros has never seen. I will not allow superstition to draw my knights into another field of fire. The field of fire is coming regardless, Stannis thundered, shooting out of his seat in spite of the pain of his leg. She is the Mad King's daughter. She burned thousands, murdered thousands more. The foreign whore will kill us all if we do not stop her, and Cersei is too mad herself to do it. It can only be me. Silence beginning to descend on the assemblage. Sansa looked around. Littlefinger seemed little swayed, only a smirk on his face. A quick glance over at Jon to nudge him into the discussion, to talk about the long night, but her brother was lost in something, thinking, brooding, far away. He sometimes was like this, and Sansa had always dismissed it, but a pattern was now emerging. Every time Daenerys Targaryen was mentioned, he'd withdraw into brooding. Never mind. This was best dealt by her and her alone. My lords and ladies, I know you may not trust his grace, nor my brother, nor even myself, but there is a man whose honor stood the test of time, even in death. Feeling Littlefinger's leer upon her, she resisted the feeling of revulsion to continue. My father fought for what was right. He rose up against the Mad King. He left our home to serve as Robert Baratheon's hand. When the Lannisters plotted against the realm, he fought to stop them. There was only one man he ever considered naming king of the 7 kingdoms. Gesturing to her left, she looked at Stannis in the eye, then to Littlefinger, as if addressing him personally. He wouldn't be swayed by appeals to honor and glory as the other lords would. but a good game and advantageous position would sway him. Stannis Baratheon is the man Ned Stark chose to serve. That proves his honor. He is the man Jon Stark chose to serve. That proves his justice. He is the man Brynden Tully chose to serve. That proves his strength. He is the man the free folk follow. That proves his greatness. If there is a man that can defeat Cersei, fight back the foreign invaders, and secure a lasting peace in the realm, it is he. Jon was impressed. Arya was impressed. Even Stannis was impressed. The formerly sweet, romantic girl had been reborn into someone formidable in her own right. The most impressed, however, was Littlefinger. "My dear Lord Aaron, I do believe we found our king." His smile found Sansa's, and both knew there was no sincerity in them. But as the Vale Lords bent the knee to Stannis, she knew it didn't matter. Today was a victory. Tomorrow would be the day to worry. "The news will travel fast, my lady," Lord Baxley remarked. Matter-of-factly, ravens journeying to each of the 7 kingdoms, to the free cities and beyond, proclaiming that I, the Lord Protector of the Vale, hath proclaimed the Vale of Arryn for Stannis Baratheon. He spoke with a self-aggrandized flourish, and at least in this case it was well-deserved. He was one of the most powerful men in Westeros. Arm looped in the crook of his Sansa, made sure to keep her voice guarded. "Never giving anything away. You've declared for other houses before, Lord Botchish. And yet it seems the only person you've ever truly worked for is yourself." They walked along the walls of Harrenhal, ostensibly watching the sun set to the west, glittering over the massive lake. It was beautiful. It was pure and natural. Neither of them cared. The schemes of men more prominent on their minds. Littlefinger chuckled, as if charmed by a naive child. "I'd like to think of myself as returning to my original allegiance. Given the truth of Joffrey and Tommen's parentage, Stannis is the heir to King Robert Baratheon, the true king. And based on legitimacy grounds, Daxley Targaryen has a higher claim over all." As she shivered at the chilly wind, Sansa knew not to say that. Taking Littlefinger's words on their face was always foolhardy. Experience had left her capable of discerning the things Jon or Arya couldn't. Naive child indeed. Now Lord Back sentimental, are we? A smirk crossed Littlefinger's face. "Perhaps, Lady Stark, perhaps I do feel some gratitude for the king and house that first allowed me to rise from a lowly Lord of the Fingers to great heights." He spread his free hand out, gesturing to the great castle they were strolling in. "And yet it was Lady Cersei, if I recall correctly, that granted you Harrenhal after Jane Selyse was sent to the wall. If only Jane could have killed him there before he hung up his black cloak. One could think you still hold connections with her." A very dangerous game of words between the two, so seemingly friendly yet more akin to giants battling. His smile only widened, stopping to stare into Sansa's eyes. A twinkling look that Sansa had seen in many men, longing, lust, desire. It made her disgusted. But one of the things learned long ago from Cersei and Margaery was how to mask such a feeling. "I understand how His Grace and others might think that, which is why I have provided him a gift." Sansa furrowed her brows. "A gift?" "Aye, something stolen from under Cersei's nose, something the disgraced maester who advises her created, a device that can be used to defeat Daenerys Targaryen's dragons." "Oh?" Now this genuinely interested her. "May I see it?" Littlefinger chuckled, reaching out to stroke her cheek with his thumb. "My dear Sansa, you shall watch the demonstration with all the others." Still locked in an intimate moment, he leaned forward to kiss her head. "I can tell you don't enjoy being here, my lady, that you wish to be home in Winterfell, with your brothers and little sister." Even with how guarded she was, Littlefinger had an ability to pierce through Sansa's armor. It was what scared her the most. "I will go wherever Jon requires it of me. He is my brother and my lord." Oh yes, the motherless bastard born of the South, the one the Northerners supposedly rally behind over the true-born son and daughter of Ned and Catelyn Stark. Also the one the bannermen of the Stormlands and Riverlands and the wildling warriors seemed to join the Northerners in worshipping. Sansa's eyes narrowed. "Your point, Lord Bollish." He pulled his hand away, but with his face inching closer and closer to hers. "Just a vision I have been having for the longest time. One of you sitting right beside me upon the Iron Throne." Littlefinger's lips were just about to brush upon Sansa, but she pulled away abruptly, allowing a slight revulsion to show upon her expression. "I shall see you at dinner tonight, Lord Baxley." Sansa began walking towards the nearest tower, suppressing a shudder. I'm glad we were able to come to an agreement with the Mockingbird so quickly, Jon said, leaning over to Stannis. The king gave a grumble of agreement, then nodded. Yes, I was as well, but he rapidly turned to the Stark, though you didn't think he gave it to us so easily because he had ulterior motives. I don't know, Your Grace, Jon frowned. From what Sansa's told me, he isn't to be trusted, but unfortunately, we needed his help. What are the possibilities of... Stannis started, but then his eyes wandered around the room until he saw Sansa. He slightly motioned in her direction. Installing your sister instead? She was paramount in securing the veil, after all. Jon seemed to ponder on the thought for a few moments, mulling it around in his mind. Sansa had already been sold off to another family, not once, but twice. Could he do that to her yet again? His initial thoughts told him she most likely wouldn't be elated about the idea, because she would undoubtedly have to marry Sweet Robin. Though it would solve an imminent issue, petty or baelish, the more he thought about the man, the farther he wished to be from him. The man was positively repulsive, and the unknowns surrounding his true allegiances worried him. To be honest, I'm not sure how my sister would feel about such a thing, Jon replied, shaking his head. Marrying a child, she's already been sold to a monster. Robin Arryn isn't a monster, Stark, just a boy, Stannis said. And with a woman as strong as your sister, he'd be merely a puppet for her. He's just not quite the man I think she'd want, Jon sighed, his own eyes flying to his red-haired sister, talking with Arya. I don't even know if she'd ever take man again, after what she endured. She's a woman of your house, and she should do her duty, Stannis said, as if it was obvious. It doesn't have to be a discussion. I know, Your Grace, Jon huffed, holding his hands up. I just want to take her wishes into account. I see, Stannis rubbed his bearded chin. You don't want her to be unhappy. Yes, of course. I understand, Stannis said, his mind filled with thoughts of Shireen being sent off to marry a stranger. But despite that, if she can alleviate the burden of the Mockingbird, I must say I might insist. How do we know that she can? She has some say over them. It was her word that was the final utterance they needed to hear, Stannis pointed out. Baelish is Lord Protector. If Sansa, the Lady of the Aerie, she'd be able to take more control than him. I'm sure Lord Royce would be welcome to the idea. Surely Littlefinger isn't the most loved man there. Jon leaned a bit closer and whispered to the stag. He did push Lysa through the moon door, or so Sansa says. Stannis frowned. Truly? At Jon's nod, he continued. He did so to take control of the Vale. Seeing as they had just married, he'd be at the head. If that's true, Stark, we must be rid of this man. There's no telling what he's capable of. A silence settled between them. For some time, the two of them sat quietly, until Jon spoke. What shall we do about the Dragon Queen, Your Grace? His voice was hesitant and very uncertain. I don't know, at least not right now, Stannis replied, his voice low. Not the sort of answer Jon was looking for, he sighed. I suppose we'll have to think of something. I suspect she'll be very difficult to defeat, Stannis grumbled. 3 dragons, 7 hells. Just like Akan the Conqueror, Jon remarked. Only he had 3 dragon riders. She only has 1. I think that may be used for an advantage. Blinking, Stannis offered one of his rare smiles. I made the right choice when I made you master of war. Those winged beasts will be far easier to take down without a rider controlling them. He leaned back in his chair. Do you think Littlefinger's contraption would actually help? Jon shrugged. I haven't seen it, so I don't know. It's better than what we have at the moment. However, little more than King Loren and King Mern on the field of fire. By that he meant nothing. Both men knew that. Across the way, Cersei eyed the pair, her gaze narrowing harshly on them. She leaned forward to yell out, going as far to open her mouth wide, though she stopped, thinking better of herself than to openly call out her king. Though that didn't stop her from removing her deathly stare from Jon Stark's forehead, clenching of the jaw and her hands tightening around the arms of her chair, her fingernails digging out chunks in the wood. Only did she stop fully when she felt blood pooling under her nails, not the pain. Nearby, Arya and Sansa engaged in conversation. I can't stand the thought of dragons flying over my head, Sansa shivered. Arya didn't share the same sentiment. What, you don't want to see a dragon? I've gone this long without witnessing one, Sansa said. Going the rest of my life won't be so bad. Huffing Arya crossed her arms. Where's your sense of adventure, sister? At the withering look Sansa sent her, she sighed. Fair enough, but still. A real-life dragon, like in all the stories of old, with Visenya and Rhaenyra Targaryen. Not much wonder left in this shit world, but there's still that. Wonder, yes, but also fire, burning death. Sansa glanced at Jon, thinking of Rickon as well. The last Targaryen king burned our uncle and grandfather. The last Targaryen prince raped our aunt. What would the last Targaryen princess do to our family? Frowning, conceding Sansa's point. Arya could only look down at her plate. Perhaps Princess Daenerys can come to an understanding with Stannis. She shrugged. Jon is young and unattached. Perhaps he could get a Targaryen wardeness of Winterfell, neutralize her. Then their child could marry Stannis' heir. Eyeing her with a raised eyebrow, both women knew that such a plan was more wishful thinking than anything. The long oak doors swung open suddenly, and small blonde-haired boys strutted enclasping a raven scroll. Everyone quieted down as he entered. The child kept his head down, circling around the table to where Stannis sat. Once reaching there, he held the scroll out to the king. Stannis stared at the parchment in the messenger boy's hands. What's this? Word from the south, the boy said, in a small voice. Once the scroll was snatched from his hands, the boy just about ran anyway. Slowly, Stannis unfurled the paper and read the words within. His eyes scanned over it quickly. He grumbled, tossing it forward onto the table, not immediately saying anything, and his face gave nothing away. Jon leaned forward. Your Grace? What happened? The Dragon Queen is here. The War of the Three Monarchs had begun.